Hey Afflictor fans, today we're going to take a walk in the woods and we're going to talk about some of the top preferred browse for early season for whitetails. Stay tuned. Today we're in Northeast Ohio and we're going to be talking a little bit of some early season browse that you can look for that the deer really prefer. Now, the things we're going to be talking about today are always available to the whitetail and they seem to be hit on all the time, all throughout the season. But why it would be important to us is these are available before the acorns fall. So if you are setting your stands up and you're looking for areas that are good transition areas and you want to be in an area between bedding and food sources and look for some preferred items, these are a few of the things that you should look for that will really help you out before the acorns ever hit the ground. And the first thing we're going to talk about is beech. Just like a young maple tree, the beech leaves are preferred by whitetails, and the beech tree is really easy to identify even alone just by its bark. It's a silvery, smooth bark. They often grow in large groups. The trees can get quite large, but the low-hanging branches are often sought out by the whitetail as a preferred food source. When we look at the leaf structure for the beech, that's the shape of the leaf. It has some small little tiny sharp lobes around the whole edge. These leaves form in clusters, and as we pan around this area here to the left, you will see we are in a beech grove. There is a tree stand here also for that reason, and as you look at these low branches, you can easily see that a lot of them have been completely stripped clean by the deer in this area because they have been in here browsing. And it's a real easy thing to look for as you're walking through the woods. The beech trees are easily identifiable, and then you can look through the low parts of all those trees and see, have the leaves been stripped? Are the deer actually feeding in this area? So beech are one of the first things that I like to look for early season. Another key browse all season long for whitetail is the Multiflora Rose. Now, this plant, of course, is a nemesis to hunters and farmers and homeowners all over. It grows prolifically, it spreads fast, and it is a total nuisance. It grows everywhere, and of course, the sharp thorns on this plant get caught in your hunting clothes. They snag us up, they slow us down. They're a real pain in the neck. However, this is a preferred food source for early season whitetails to feed on. And you can easily tell when you find Multiflora. Of course, this is the shape and pattern of the leaves. You can identify it also by all the thorns. Some people will call this a greenbrier of some sort. But you can tell easily just by looking across it if the deer have been browsing on the Multiflora Rose. Now, one of the key things you want to look at to distinguish between a deer and say how a rabbit would feed on the same thing, so you know which is which. Since the deer do not have upper teeth, they have to rip and tear. So when you look at the whitetail's anatomy, just inherently by the way they have to nip, the cuts are not going to be clean. They're going to be jagged, they're going to be straight across, but you can clearly see that there is a lot missing from this Multiflora Rose that's growing here. And so it's a key way to determine. If this was a rabbit, unless there was a lot of snow on the ground, the bites would be closer to the ground and they have one nice shear. Since the rabbit has top and lower teeth and they're very sharp, when they nip, it nips in one angled cut really perfectly. So if you're trying to distinguish between is a rabbit feeding here or a whitetail feeding here, height is one determination, of course, but the other is by the way the bite is across the plant itself. So if it's messy and jagged, it's whitetail. If it's angled and nice and crisp, it's usually a cottontail. Now again, Multiflora Rose grows everywhere, but as a deer travels through the woods and along its normal patterns, if there's Multiflora, it's likely to stop there and take a moment and browse a little. So when you're considering your setups early season, you might want to really look for Multiflora Rose. So the last thing I want to talk about today is my favorite, and that is Jewelweed. Some people call this the touch-me-not plant because as the flowers mature into seed pods, if you touch them, they explode, and that way the seeds can scatter across the ground. But this is a huge food source for whitetail all season long. And there's a couple reasons for that. It's highly nutritious, but it's also full of moisture. So on dry days or in dry areas where, maybe there's not a lot of water available, they will certainly hone in on Jewelweed because it contains so much moisture in these thick stems. Now, one of the benefits of jewelweed is the way it grows, it's like its own food plot. So if you can find a big patch of jewelweed, like this little patch right here, you can see the deer have completely mowed it over. And again, we know it's whitetails because we got these jagged tops on here where they've had to pull it off, but they have completely leveled this entire area. As far as I can see, the jewelweed is all this height. And they will continue to come in and browse on this all season long. But again, if you can set yourself up in an area where there's jewelweed and it fits your travel pattern and your stand placement, it is an excellent spot to try to ambush a whitetail early season.